Good morning, evening, afternoon, so wherever you are in the world, and we're back with another episode of Author's Purpose, where we ask authors what's the purpose of their book. And today we have Nicholas, the author of Heartbeat. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm awful at describing myself, but I'm a philosopher and a grad student at the moment, and I'm stuck in quarantine like everybody else. That's pretty much it.
So, why did you want to come on the podcast today?
I really just liked the way that you approached me, and it got me curious. I never did a podcast before, and it isn't really something that I get to do a lot, talking to people that have read and are either fans or people who just read the book. I don't really get in touch with a lot of them, so I think that's the main reason. And it's something new. I never did it, so I always like trying something new.
Okay. That's a good reason. So I want to know what's your main inspirations for Heartbeat?
Well, in terms of inspiration, I don't know. It's basically because the book is this weird blend of fact and fiction. And so I don't know exactly what inspired me to do it. I think I have to look back at where I was when I started writing it last year. And it was just everything in my life was kind of ending. I was finishing college. It was my second degree, my second bachelor's. And I was just about to start grad school in a while. And so I had this, relationships that were ending and others that were beginning. It was just a weird time where there was a lot of good stuff happening and a lot of bad stuff happening. And I kind of managed it well enough, And I don't know, I kind of started having the idea of writing it. First, because I wanted to I do write usually within academia, so, but it's a different kind of writing. And I was, writing 2 or 3 articles about philosophers and the history of philosophy, and one about social politics, and completely different than Heartbeat. And I started getting this idea because I was supposedly dealing so well with everything that was going on in my life. I kind of just had this light bulb moment when I thought, well, this never happened before. I was never in a place where good stuff and bad stuff was happening, and I was being able to cope with it the way that I was. So that sort of made me want to write about it, because it was the first time that I actually felt like I had the upper hand in the whole mental health thing. And so then I got the idea, this very basic idea of a book, and I just sat down and wrote 2 chapters and a last one, which ended up, being published. And I thought that would be it, really. I thought that after I was done with the second chapter, I wasn't going to follow through. I don't know, I'd get bored or something like that. But I didn't. The next day I woke up and I had the 3rd chapter perfectly outlined in my head, and all the days that followed, and I finished the book incredibly fast. It was kind of nice.
I really enjoyed the book, so I'm glad you finished it.
Yeah, and I am too.
So can you go into detail about your specific process of making Heartbeat, like your outline. How did you outline? How much time do you spend writing, editing?
Well, I write basically. I have this thing that I cannot. When I start writing something, when I start, be it an article or a chapter of a book, if I started it, I cannot for the life of me stop in the middle and pick it up later. So I always have to finish it. If I start writing a chapter, I do it, and I only stop whenever that chapter feels like it's finished to me, even though it's a draft and it doesn't matter. So basically, when I am on writing mode, I always just write a chapter or two a day. That usually takes 2 hours, sometimes a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I do the same thing. But with Heartbeat it was very particular because I did every day I would write from 2 to 3 chapters, and so that meant 5 hours of writing a day, which is something that I'm doing now. But basically because I can't do anything else. Nobody can, I don't have to do anything else. I'm not allowed to.
Yeah. It's really good for us writers because we get to write more, but at the same time, it's kind of terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. And I'm having that because I am writing a lot more, but I do have, as I said, I am in grad school, so I have this decision that I make every single day, which is, do I focus on my dissertation or do I focus on the 3 books that I'm writing? And I should be the kind of person that is able to focus on the dissertation more than the 3 books, because that's I have a deadline for that. But I end up just writing the books that I am writing because I want to finish.
Let's talk about, so I want to know some difficulties that you faced while writing Heartbeat, and how did you overcome them?
Well, the biggest difficulty I've had with Heartbeat was, and it is something that I have with every single book that I am writing right now. It's a matter of distance. I have a problem with distancing myself from what I'm writing. So with Heartbeat, that was completely impossible to do. I tried to do that, but I couldn't. I had this, I don't know, by chapter 5 or so, I actually took a break. I wanted to stop writing it because it was getting a little bit too real for me. And in terms of, it was just me, it started to feel like it was just me telling my story and exposing myself in a way that I've never done, and talking about stuff that I've never even talked about with my own therapist, but I was talking about it with Dr. Foster. And so the distance, maintaining that distance was something that was very difficult. And in the end, I just realized that it's the way I write. I can't do it in any other way. So I had to embrace it and hope that it was enough. And that's basically what I did. And I don't know if it worked or it didn't, but it's the only way that I can produce, the only way that I can actually write and start and finish something. So that's pretty much it. But it is very weird. Kind of.
I don't think it's weird because I'm going to have to totally agree on you with that. Because when I write, I have to have an emotional bond with that character, and I get so attached to them that it kind of hurts to write certain chapters when they go through difficulties because I kind of feel that pain that they're feeling, and I have the same problem with like not being able to distance myself from the work because to me these characters are not characters, they're real people, and when you mention it, like, I understand that like when you make yourself like connect with your work, I really felt it. Like I felt that you put a lot of effort, time, and energy into this.
Yeah, that's something that I get a lot. You know, a lot of people say that, and it's a lovely thing to have someone say that to you. But Heartbeat has this. It's different from anything else that I'll ever get to write, because it really is. There's just one character in the entire book that isn't based on somebody that I know or have known. So it's I kind of I kind of feel like I lost the control of the distance when it comes to Heartbeat, because it really ended up being way more true than initially intended. So it's like 80% my life and 20% fiction. But I'm okay with that. It's something I just don't know. It was just difficult to do that and to have people know so much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't even know.
Yes. I don't remember the exact term, but it's called mirroring. So like things that I have gone through in my life, I subconsciously add into my novels. And struggles like with coming out and things like that. I add them into my novels as probably my characters has to face as like a way to, I don't know, I just do it subconsciously. It's not even conscious most of the times. And sometimes when I reread my old works, I'm like, oh my God, I exposed myself with this and that because I'm literally telling, like showing the audience what the character is going through. I'm showing what I have gone through.
Exactly, and it's kind of terrifying because, at least for me, when I was writing it, at one point I just went with it, because I never thought the book was going to get any sort of attention from anyone, and I always thought the book was going to just disappear in the corners of the internet, and so I just went with it. But looking back, and sometimes I see a comment or someone commenting, and I go and I try to answer, because I do try to talk to everyone, and I read what the section that they highlighted, and it's something that is not even fiction or not even a lack of distance. It's just me telling something that really actually happened, and it's so terrifying sometimes to know that 800,000 people have had access to that, which is so unbelievable.
So, what is some advice that you would give to your past writing self when starting Heartbeat?
Oh, let's see. I don't know. I think just the idea of giving advice to my pet self is something that I really try not to dwell on, because sometimes depending on how I am, I would like to tell him tons of things, and depending if I'm having a bad day. If I'm having a good day, I can settle for like a simple, be a little more open or less afraid, or just, I don't know, you're more normal than you think you are, and whatever it is in your head, it does make sense to a lot of people, and does make sense whenever you are able to put it into words and twist it in a way that people can actually hear you. So I think there's a question of bravery, I think, that I would try and remind him, and also the whole it gets better thing. That's something that I would have loved to have heard when I was younger.
Next question. I want to know, how do you deal with the pressure of writing novels like
I don't really have that, because I'm not under contract. I don't have deadlines. I don't have nobody's expecting my next work. I have like probably like 5 fans and people who I can. I really, at least I think so. There's like 5 people who are really excited for something new, and so that's cool, and I love that. And the only thing that I'm trying to do is not publish weekly. I'm going to finish all the books that I'm writing, and I'm just going to throw it out there in full and have people hopefully enjoy it. Those 5 people. but in terms of pressure, I don't feel it. I don't have. I really don't think it's something that I take into account.
So, what are you currently reading?
Well, I'm reading a lot. I always read a lot, and it's sort of weird because I'm trying to read stuff that takes my mind off of everything that's going on, and I'm trying to read stuff that's different from what I'm writing. And also, I have to read a lot because of my research. So basically, a lot of philosophers and a lot of theories about my thesis, which involves physics and involves theory of multiverse and things like that, because I am a little bit obsessed with infinity. So I'm reading. There's always The Wall on my nightstand. I have also a book by a Brazilian philosopher who wrote a book which is very, very good in times like these. It's called How to Talk to a Fascist, and it's very nice. But I was trying to get new books, but no, I have been working on. I always say that I'm working on it, but I have been reading one particular book that's called The 2 Sources of Morality and Religion by the philosopher who I absolutely admire called Henri Bergson. And he was a Nobel Literary Prize winner, and he's part of my research. So I'm reading that. And he had the best way of writing.
What was the first book you've ever written?
People never believe me when I say this, okay? So, Heartbeat.
Oh. You sure?
I swear to God.
It's so... Because, I had to build up that. I started when I was very young, so it used to be this little childish story they used to write. And for you to write an amazing novel like Heartbeat, first time, it's just really something incredible.
And it will never happen again because I wrote it and it took me 4 months, a little more than that. But yeah, that was my first book ever.
So, this is the last question of the general question for you. We're going to try to get to some more personal questions, but...
Okay.
Okay, so what advice would you give some younger, aspiring authors? And this is kind of like what had you get publishing section of the universe.
First of all, I really don't think I should be in a position to give advice. But if I have to, I would basically just tell them what I always think people should say. And that is right. If you think that you have a story that you're passionate about, if you have the passion for stories and you think that you can do that you can come up with a tale of whatever, just write, sit down, write it down, and don't really focus on, don't try to make it something that will be successful, because all of that it will come if it has to, and it doesn't matter in the end. The fact is, if you love writing, if you think that there is a story that's worth telling, you should just do it, no matter what people tell you. And never, ever believe those people who will criticize you and say, you should stop doing that. Never believe that. If you like writing, just do it.
So now to the more personal questions. I just call them personal questions, but they're kind of just questions.
Okay. That's okay. I don't mind.
So
obviously, I wrote a whole book about me, so
yeah.
Really don't. That's okay for me, by me. Go ahead.
So, who authors hate this question, but I'm just gonna ask it. Who's your favorite and least favorite character in your novel, and why?
My favorite character is Ethan. My least favorite character, I don't think I have one.
Every author says that.
Yes, but basically because I know everybody that I've written about, and I don't hate any of them. I have different kinds of relationships with them, but I love each and every one of them. Even Lucy, I love her. Ethan is he is the one, and the single, the best character that I have in that book, and it is, oddly enough, the only one that's fictional. But I just love writing him.
My favorite character in the novel, oddly enough, is Dr. Foster.
Really?
Yes. I love all of the characters, don't get me wrong, but she's quirky and, I don't know, amazing.
She's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I agree. And she's based on my therapist. I didn't even try to hide that because I named her. Her first name is exactly the same name as my therapist. She's also called Alicia, and but I just love it. I love her too. But Ethan to me is the best one.
Take notes, so I'm going to share some couple things that I said about her. So one thing, the reason why I really like her is because I said she's my spirit animal. Because she really knows how to approach the character in a way that's not too threatening, but just threatening enough to get him to open up about himself. And exactly. I really like that. And she really does seem like a genuine therapist. She doesn't seem like a made up therapist that doesn't know what she's talking about. She actually seems like a real person.
Yeah, and human. I tried at least to make her very human, with flaws of her own, and people really hate the fact that she lets Thomas smoke during sessions, and there's a lot that people don't like about her, but I like her because to me she's full of contradictions, and the fact that she has such a bad relationship with her family and can still be the kind of person that brings someone out of the very depths of darkness. It's, to me, awesome.
Okay. If you had a chance to rewrite something in Heartbeat, what would it be?
There's a lot that I wrote that never made it to the final manuscript, the published part. I wrote, there's a lot more about the story that I left out. And I think that if I were to rewrite it, I would have paid a little more attention to the parents, because I left, my idea when I wrote it was to let the reader just figure it out. Why was it that they were always going to the lake? And I kept dropping hints, and I don't think that people actually got that. I think I did. I do think I failed in showing just how absent and screwed up they were. But if I ever do write something more in that, in I don't know, the
universe?
Within, the universe of Heartbeat, if I do write something more, I will no doubt pay more attention to them, because I think people deserve to know why is it that Noah and Thomas were always alone.
These next couple questions are really deep, so just embracing you.
Okay.
So I want to know, what's the meaning or theme of Heartbeat, and why did you decide upon this theme?
I thought when I was writing it, when I decided to write it, I thought that, first of all, I thought that I was ready to approach and to remember and to go into detail about a lot of things. But I also wanted to write something that I didn't have when I was 17. And that is, something that I never got to read a book that I saw myself in. I never got to read a book that the character suffered and struggled with depression, and he just talked about it the way that I felt. And I certainly never read a book about a love story that I ever experienced, or that I didn't have to change in my head the gender of the person that I was reading about. But mostly, I think Harvey came from two things. First, the idea that I was finally ready to tell some of my story and to have that story heard.
So I want to know, what is the theme / meaning of Heartbeat, and why did you decide upon this theme?
Okay, so I think basically you have to take into account where I was in my life when I decided to write this. And I mentioned in a little bit that I was at a point where there was a lot of endings and beginnings, but everything was ending and the beginnings weren't really happening yet. So I was in kind of a limbo. And during that time, which was a couple of months, I felt like, two things basically. I felt like I was finally ready to talk about the things that I talk about in the book. And I thought that I could handle it. Something that I later found wasn't exactly the case, but I was somewhat ready to go into them. And so I wanted, first thing, I wanted the story heard and understood, and just to actually finally try and get rid of it, in the sense of letting it be somewhere other than my head and my heart, whatever. And also, I never got to read a book when I was 17. I never got to read something that I saw myself in. First of all, because there's very little literature about anybody who's bi.
Yes,
and also, when it comes to discussing mental health and books that discuss mental health for young adults. I think a lot of the times, people just talk down to them. People, they kind of, it ends up feeling like it's a bit fake, but not, deliberately maybe. It's just that whenever, at least I feel this way, because whenever I read something that someone is talking about depression, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be a book for young adults, it can be any kind of genre. Sorry. You can immediately tell when someone who's talking about depression and mental health, you can immediately tell when they know what they're talking about and when they're just researching what they're talking about. And most of the books that are out there, I feel, do that. They do a lot of research and they assume a lot of things about people dealing with mental health, and they talk down to those people, and I at least never saw myself represented, and I just thought it would be nice to write and something that maybe would be a bit more just another part of another side of having to deal with mental health issue.
Well, yeah, I keep saying this, but it's so true. But you really did a really good job, because I felt that it was that you actually been through these things, and I haven't even met you. I just read the story, because if you, like I said, I go through it as well, and also bisexual, so I have to play on those both minorities, because people assume things about my depression that sometimes is true, but that's not normally true. And you really can't have that good feel of when somebody is actually experienced that and actually went through it. Because I don't know what it is, but it's different from when they research it.
Exactly. No, it's completely different. You can spot it, in with one sentence. You can already tell. Well, he's just saying what he thinks or she thinks I want to hear, and that's what always bothered me.
And then with bisexual literature, I don't know if this is just me, but they always, not always, some people can get it right, but when it's like someone that's not have gone through the bisexual struggle, they assume that we're half heterosexual or half homosexual, that we're not a complete picture, like we're not neither, we're bi.
Or that we don't exist,
Yeah, I thought that was. We don't exist. Yep, they all gone.
Because which bisexual person never heard anyone saying, well, you just don't really want to come to terms with whatever side you actually like,
I went through that when I was actually coming out and opening out at school. The people that were gay, my school was very positive with homosexuals and lesbians, but not really anybody else. Not just those two. And when I first came out, the heterosexuals in my school, they would call me gay, or they would push me toward that crowd. Wow. The homosexuals in my school would call me straight and push me towards that crowd. So it was like,
we're like these mythical creatures who barely exist. A unicorn. Yeah.
Or Bigfoot. I'm gonna be Bigfoot. So we got into these questions earlier than expected. Because these were literally some of the questions I was going to ask. Okay. Do events / emotions in your life mirror your character's emotions / events?
Yes, absolutely. They're some more than others. I have there are a couple that I really protected, air quotes. I really protected them. Noah is one of them. But his personality is exactly the personality of my sibling. Marcy is someone who I absolutely love writing about as well. She's complicated as fuck. I'm sorry. But, and she, to me, is just so complex and so awesome. And so, yeah. And, you know, there are conversations that I've had. There are, especially, well, Thomas is, everybody figured it's me, but he's a better version of me because, you know, he is a character. He's just, you know, much braver and better. But, no, well. But anyway, the book has, it does contain a lot of actual conversations that I've had, of actual accounts, actual things that have happened, and especially pretty much everything dealing in those moments when Thomas is, when the reader is given a glimpse of Thomas's mind and his thought process and how he feels things and works it out. That is basically reality, you know.
As you're up for it, could you describe your personal experiences with dealing with coming out?
My experience with that is a bit different than most. I have had, I can't really deny the fact my whole existence has quite privileged. So I haven't really gone the coming out thing with people, because it was just natural to me. I've never felt like, and there are different reasons for that. First of all, I didn't have to do it with my parents because we barely have a relation, but the people that did have a relationship with me, the people that I have, that I had to, at some point, you know, talk it up, my siblings, and who, you know, in the book, when Thomas is talking to Noah about the fact that, you know, a guy just slept over, kind of like that, you know, completely natural, completely just, well, okay, a dude is here, that's and so it's been, in that regard, I did have this privilege of not having to do the whole coming out thing. The thing that, and that for me is a personality trait more than anything. I've always, ever since I was very young, I've this very clear idea of, I don't know how, because I am extremely cynical and pessimistic, but I've had this very clear notion of love and that was like, or how it was supposed to be like. And never in my mind, it never occurred to me that was gendered, that it should be gendered, or that it should be of anybody's business other than my own. So this whole, I've always known, even when I was a kid, you know, I never really had a problem with being attracted to someone of the same gender. I never had a problem of accepting myself. Having said that, I think most people dealt a very, very different, you know, they have very different experiences, and there's one that really bothers me, and it's something that we all share. Doesn't matter if you've had, like I just told you, you know, extremely privileged way of working it out, or if you had to do the traditional coming out thing at your pace and time. There's one thing that is a constant that everybody in the community, even those who deny the community, as you said, everybody goes through, and it's something that bothers the fuck. Sorry again, but and that is the fact that if you think about it, like really think about it, everybody who is a part of the community, even whether they like it or not, they have this one moment, and it can happen when you're 4, it can happen when you're 9. To me, it happened when it can happen when you're 29, it can happen when you're, it doesn't matter. But everybody has this one moment that I'm going to talk about, where you look at yourself alone for some, and you just think, well, if I tell this person, my parents, and I don't know, if I tell my, will she love me? So, or if she, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be your mother. It can be anybody, but
yes.
You have that. At some point in your life, you have that doubt, you have that question that comes up. Will someone, upon hearing who I am, stop caring about me? And I think that it's something that is so cruel, and in a way that nobody, gender or no other person other than the people in the community will ever understand what that feels like. And so that bothers me, and I think I find, and I don't know how to change it. I don't know if it will. I just try and be there for the people that are going through. But yeah, that really is one thing that everybody shares absolutely perverse and cruel.
I really like your take on that because it's so true. Myself, I've had friends that have said that. Yeah, I really think
I'm sorry.
that is especially true for everybody in the community. And I don't feel like it's tied to I don't feel like it's tied to any one sexuality.
No, it encompasses them all. It encompasses anybody that is different, because it is dangerous to be different. And if you are, it doesn't matter how you are. And you have that moment in your life, it's really worse when, in my case, at 9 years old, you go and you think that, well, if I do this or if I say this out loud, people will look at me different. People will stop caring about me. And it's one thing to think that when you're 9 and can't do anything about it, and it's quite another to think that when you're, 18 or 20, and you can move out, do something. But it still hurts. It's a formative experience that is something that nobody should ever, ever, ever go through.
What are your views on LGBTQ plus rights and the way society views us?
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Well, I try to do my bit. I try to fight the way that I can. I try to be there for everybody that needs. I would love to be able to not be afraid of showing anything in public without. It depends on where you're, and it depends on the kind of city that you live. If I live in a very big city, the third biggest city in the Americas, it's different from somebody who lives a small town.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to answer what it is that how it is I think society views it. I think it's a bit twofold. On one hand, they don't want to view us.
Mm-hmm.
On the other, they simply want us to go away and won't accept. But it's obviously I'm saying something that I'm generalizing the fuck out of. But there is a very large society that just really would love us to not be. And that bothers me a little. And I don't know. I think it's different because I come from and I was raised with people who were, I've always had friends who experimented very early on. And, the group of people that I've been with and been around from the get-go, it was always, everybody was very open-minded. I never really had that, but you turn on the news, you always, hate crime and things like that, and people don't really, it's something that I'm so sick of, having to, do the, watch somebody was attacked for holding some, or for kissing ocean in public and affection. And that's the sort of thing that I lived in Canada for a while. And I remember I thought it was like Toronto, and this is where I'm supposed to be, because I was living in right around Church Street, which is, LGBTQIA plus area, and you could walk around holding someone's hand and it's fine. But you always get the look, you always get
that stare.
The stare. You get that, and I don't care. It's not something that bothers me today, because to me, I'm like, fuck it. But it's something that I don't think people should experience. And I hate the fact that we experience that. I hate the fact that anybody does. To me, it's the same thing as I don't know. I hate the fact that there are people who want to delete someone else's existence because it's different from their own. And everything that I believe centers around the fact that diversity is key, and it's our strength, and it's the way to go, but I wish things were different. It is getting better, but at the same time, it's not. I think the progress is extremely, and I don't know. I mean, it's just disheartening sometimes.
So I want to know, what's your favorite chapter and why?
Okay. I think Bloom is one of. I have two favorites. For a couple of reasons. I think is a turning point on the book, and it was a turning point in real life as well. But I like it. I actually love that chapter because I think when you see in the story, it's completely important, and you see who Ethan is. You see why he does what he does. You get to see the effects that he had on Thomas, and vice versa. You get to understand Thomas a little better, but you get to really know how they work together and what makes them. And I think that's very, I don't know, it's something that I absolutely love, because the whole chapter is all about connection, and it sort of it picks apart their connection at the same time when you see it blooming, And so that's my third chapter. And the second isn't a chapter, it's the epilogue. Because when I finished the book, when I finished the chapter called Heartbeats, the last chapter, it was supposed to be like that because I wanted the last words of the first chapter to be directly connected to the last words of, but with a different meaning. Because the first chapter it ends with Thomas saying, "I'll wait," in a very dark, very sad way.
Yes.
And the last chapter ends with him saying, "I could wait," which is hope and full of possibility. Yeah. And I love that. And I wanted to end it just like that and have nothing else. But for some reason, it didn't feel like it was done. It didn't feel like it was finished. So I let it sit for a couple of days. And one night, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I said, I have to do this right because I may never write a book again. And I wrote the epilogue, which is also my favorite because for different reasons. Because it's them finally at the lake house, and I think it's a very healing, full circle sort of moment. Thomas, and it's a glimpse of their life after the whole thing, after the fight, after all the drama that happened. It just you get to see a little bit on the further in time, and right at the end you get to hear Thomas talk about them, and you can just figure out for yourself if he's talking about something that's happened a year ago, 2 years ago. It doesn't matter. But they're together, and I like that.
The epilogue, and because I started the third chapters, and I don't remember if it's chapter 9 because I have a star on both of these. Or chapter
9 was stay.
It was stay. But it's chapter. I think it's
chapter 9,
and it's where we finally get to know what happened. Actually, I think it's Liam. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like I just
when they're making out on the couch, and Ethan asks about his car. Is that the one?
I think, no,
and he tells him about Liam.
Yeah, and we get to know about Liam because I was like, so at first going into the chapter, I was like, don't tell me
what the hell is Liam?
Yeah, like don't tell me Liam is about to be another love interest because I don't have time for this. And then I was like,
I still don't understand how so many people got confused just because of the title of that. I love that.
And then as I was reading it, I was like, come on now. Y'all know Liam ran away because he told ya. And then it got revealed what really happened. And I was just like, I just could not. I was just sitting there like, this author got me messed up. Like, he ain't have to do that.
That's awesome.
I was on my bed and we like reading on my phone. I was just looking at the ceiling after I was like, man, that's happening. I was just like, I don't think I want to keep reading this. This hurts. I don't even know Leo, and this hurts. Like, I was so emotionally distraught after reading that chapter.
Yeah, it's a very sad chapter.
The epilogue I liked because it had that bitter sweet ending. I love bittersweet endings. I hate sweet endings, and I hate endings where the characters die. Because I'm just like, I've been through all of this, and then they die at the end.
No, I hate that.
And then the sweet endings, I feel like the character didn't lose anything. They didn't have to sacrifice something to get their happily ever after.
Yeah, and they learn nothing, right?
Yes, you just had the best. Everything was just given to you since like I don't get that. So the bittersweetness, it was so. It just made me feel so happy at the same time, so sad. And then it made me feel like, oh my god, this is the end of the book. Like, oh my god, I don't have any time.
You can't. No, when I wrote it, I remember because there are a couple of rules when you write it, or when you write something like a prologue. Very few people like reading prologues, and epilogues have to be very short. They have to be very, basically just something for the fan, for the people who really love the book, because the ending of the book is officially the last chapter. And I was really sort of torn in having an epilogue or not. But then I wrote it, and I said, in the back of my mind, I was like, don't make this too long, don't make this too strong, too dark, too sad, or happy. I don't know. But it ended up being, in my opinion, one of the strongest parts of the book. And I like it because it feels real, because it's no happy forever. There's no magical thing that happened and now Thomas has absolutely no problem whatsoever. Everything's peachy. There's none of that. It's just reality.
Yes.
So
love that. Okay. So, a couple more questions in the personal section.
Okay.
I want to know, what are some tropes that you endure, and what are some tropes that you hate?
I kind of like, I don't adore any. I don't like forms like that, but I like the idea of enemies to lovers.
Me too.
Yeah, I am actually writing something that's a bit like that, but I don't like it when it's, too much of it. I like it when it's like, it has to be funny. If it's not funny, it doesn't work. I hate anything that's not like that. And I absolutely despise a couple of others. One being both of them are very, very much prominent in Wattpad, on Wattpad. And that is...
Wait, let me guess.
Okay, guess.
Is it the glorification of things that shouldn't be glorified, like suicide, depression, things like that?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it right.
That's one of them.
I don't know if I would get the other one, because that's the bad boy trope or the bad girl trope or the innocent one.
Absolutely. I absolutely despise anybody who has to, tries to sell a book that's called anything remotely like the bad boy and whatever, or I kissed the bad boy, or that bad boy. I absolutely loathe the notion of the bad boy. And the glorification of everything they said, absolutely hate it. And I also hate it comes, I think it's part of that, but I also cannot stand any book that is about a bully who is just repressed, and so he treats the other main character like shit for God knows how long, bullies him, fucks with his head, and then they fall in love. And they end up together. I absolutely hate that. Any sort of, if you have it in the title, bad boy or bully, I'm not reading it. I really am not reading it, and I actually have very strong opinions on that. So I just absolutely hate it.
That's like a common thing. Like the first interview that I ever did, I'm nervous now, but it's like we all have a strong disdain for the bad boy trope and the glorification trope. We hate them for some reason.
Yes, I don't know why there's so many of those on Wattpad. I don't get it. It's so ridiculous. Really, it's like in your face. I just hate it,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I tried it. I was gonna give it a chance, and I just was reading this like, first of all, these characters are one dimensional. Like, what kind of movie? Like, can't up with. And then second of all, Dexter's not okay. It's not cute. Like, I don't understand what's up.
It just I can't even. I mean, to me, it's just like trying to find for ages. Whenever you wanted to watch a movie that was about, I don't know, two guys or two girls, whatever, one of them always would die. You know, you can pick like 4 movies that aren't straight movies, and they end up together and they have somewhat of a happy ending. To me, it's the same thing. I don't watch any of those movies that, you know, someone gets sick and they die horribly, and I don't like that.
Moving on to the next question. What are the parts of writing that energizes you, and what are the parts of writing that exhausts you?
I do get something that's akin to a natural high whenever I'm writing. And it doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be that. Whenever I am actually writing, you know, my dissertation or anything, there's something that happens to me and I absolutely live for it. So whenever I am, and especially when I'm being able to, you know, get like 2, 3, 4 chapters under 2 hours, that's like heaven for me.
It takes me a whole week to write 2 chapters.
No, well, but in the exhausting part, I don't think anything hasn't been at least exhausting. I'm having trouble with my thesis because I really picked something that I shouldn't have picked as my project, but that is all on me. I'm struggling to make sense of a couple of things. A big project, and I knew it was going to be this big, but in terms of I don't think I have that. Actually, I do get the euphoria and excitement about writing whenever I sit down and write, or it can be the simplest thing. It can be just a line that perfectly ends a chapter, begins or starts a chapter. It doesn't matter. Big or small, it's almost like a high to me.
I guess I have weird ones because certain parts of writing really gets me a natural habit, as you said, and some writing parts really don't do that. But I love to write still. So like the idea, the first initial idea, so excited. Then the outlining part, it's like a middle. It's like depending on a chapter, I get really bummed down or really high. And then the actual writing part is the same. Like depending on that chapter and what's happening in that chapter, I feel so excited. The words just come to me. And then if it's like a more, I don't know, harder chapter to write for whatever reason, I actually have to sit down and think about the word. And then the editing process is so blissful. Because I just reread it and I'm like, I'm finished.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said except for the outlining because I don't. So
you don't outline?
No, not at all.
Oh, interesting.
I have a very simple, and it just goes to prove how little experience I have with this. But the only way I do write is I have to. I write 2 chapters and the ending. That's it. So, and I work from then on. Not really trying to get to that ending that was first written, but somehow, for some reason, I always end up getting to that ending.
I actually haven't had a writer on here yet that Pants is still writing.
I am. You have now.
Yep, I have. My process is more complicated. I do a brief outlines. Basically, the main things that's going to happen in that chapter. I write the first, the middle, and the end chapter, and then I basically pants with a basic outline to get to those parts.
Yeah, that's cool. I can't do that because to me, I always approach every chapter as having a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't like to. To me, it has to have an end. Every single chapter.
Yeah. To me, it's a string. To me, like it's a string. I take the string starts here, and these chapters are part of this growing string until it reaches the end. It's a continuous flow. But I understand that way because your way is more. I can see me using that way because it's easier. It'd probably be easier because I begin with this chapter, I end with this chapter. You know, this chapter, I end with this chapter. It's not.
But there's something that can happen, and if you do it like this, the way that I do it, and it's absolutely terrifying. So in the back of your mind, you're always freaking out the entire process because you can very well just write the perfect chapter, and once you're done, you go, shit, there's nowhere to go from here.
Oh, yes.
You can get stuck extremely, very easily, and so you have to watch for that. But it's cool in a way because you're always on your feet, on toes, you know?
Okay. 2 more questions in the personal section, and then we want to really critique and strange questions. So,
okay.
I want to know, what was the first book that ever made you cry?
Shit. The one that I do know that the okay. The first book that made me cry. It's gonna sound pathetic. No, it won't be pathetic. It's gonna be a bit sad. I don't know. I was 9 years old, and it was the first book the first grown-up book that I read. I was 10. I was 10 years old, I think. And that's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh.
Absolutely lost it. It was absolutely ridiculous. I lost. I cried for days.
Mine was Roll of Thunder. I cried. It's a racial equality book, and spoiler: the main character gets hung at the end of the book. And,
God.
We read it in school, and I lost it. I started crying, so I had to be excused to go to the bathroom because I kept crying. So that was one of the first books that I did not hate when the main character died, because he was at the point of writing where like it was nothing other than some magical fancy stuff, which is contemporary, that can get him out of this position.
Yeah.
So that was the only logical way it was gonna go, and I knew it, but I'm so used to that king happily ever after, and when it actually did happen, okay, I was. Okay. Last question, the personal questions. So, what are the next books we can expect?
Okay. Well, I already published the first chapter of Third Life, which is almost done. It's gonna be shorter. It was my my attempt of writing something a little less sad and a little less heavy than Heartbeat, and I failed miserably. I am failing miserably. I have like 2 chapters to go, and I'm not going to publish it until it's ready. After that, I have a book that's called Make Me Stay. I'm gonna publish it right after that one, and then there's another one that I actually got to publish the first very bad draft of it called Lovesick, and I deleted it, unpublished it, and I worked on it again. That one's finished, actually, but I don't want to do it just now because it's not the right one to follow Heartbeat. But after that, I don't really think that I'll have another book out for a while.
Well, this unboxing comes up from any book.
Oh, thanks.
He's like, I don't have any fans. I'm just gonna pop up like, did you call me? Okay, so
there he is. One of the 5.
One of the 5. 4 or 5. So, critique section. Keep in mind, these are just my opinions and what I think.
Yeah.
What I think that you could did better and improve upon. So my own serious critique was... Okay, my own serious critique, I had 2, just 2, maybe, was that I felt in the beginning chapters, it was specifically chapters 16 and 17, that that Nevo's depression was going to be cured when he fell in love. And then he surprised me. He did do that, and I was so happy. I was like, yes, this is what I need in my life. And that was the major concern that I had with this book. And that's why I was going to follow to the review. But then I read it in chapters, and it was amazing. So, and then the other critique that I had, it bothered me a little, but it wasn't as big as that one, which diminished. Was, I'm sorry, and I forgot her name. It was the one that was best friends with Neil.
Marcy. Yeah.
I loved her character, and I really wanted her to be fleshed out more.
Oh, you're like one of the few people who like.
I was waiting, I was like, come on, she needs another chapter. Where is it?
Yeah, she shows up on the one that's her name. You know, it's called Marcy, and then she's at the party.
Yep. And I was like, come on, you did this so much.
Yeah.
I was waiting on that.
I absolutely love her, but when I published that chapter, I don't remember the number of it. I think I'm not even going to try to guess, but it's when I did that, I got so much hate from people because they absolutely hated her because she is very difficult to like right from the bat, you know, but she is extremely complex and extremely awesome. Yeah. And I get it. I wanted her to have, more time, but for that to happen, I would have had to have made the book like at least 4 chapters long, and it wouldn't have worked.
Yes, I completely understand.
But she is awesome. I agree with both of your critique.
Okay. Strange questions. Not necessarily strange, but they are not necessarily dealt to the book.
Okay.
But I wanted to know, what was the weirdest / funniest comment that you ever got on the book?
I don't know. Recently, someone I get lost a lot on the notifications because a lot of people, thankfully, are reading it. But there was this one person, I think it's a guy, but there was this one person that was so excited about every single line. And at the end, he just said something about, the author's note, I think. He said something about being, plot twist, you're Thomas, as a joke. And right after that, he wrote something like, holy chicken. And he said holy chicken for some reason. And I found that just completely insane and funny. But I can't remember a specific comment that was funny. Or that. I can't remember that. I really can't. What was the other part? Sorry.
That's the question. How many hours do you write a day?
pre-lockdown or during lockdown?
Give us both, I guess.
Okay. Before lockdown, I would, I think 5 hours. That's something that 3 hours. 3 hours a day before lockdown. Now I'm up to 5 on a slow day.
On a slow day. Woo.
Yeah. I write quite a lot. But, yeah. I'm trying to, as I'm finishing the stuff that I'm going to finish, as I said, after the third book, I don't think I'm going to come anything for a while. So I just want to do that now while I can.
What do you believe is the most unethical practice in the publishing industry?
I think I have a big problem with vanity publishing, which is something that hasn't really been too common lately, but I really don't like it. But I don't have an agent. I don't have anything, any contact, so I don't,
What's your favorite underrated novel?
Can it be from Wattpad?
Any book.
Well, I'm going to say one that I really like, and it's on Wattpad, and it's called Summer of 1996. I don't know if you read it. It's by Enamorama, and she is fantastic. Everything she writes is just gold. It's beautiful. It's called Summer of 96. Yeah. She also has one about poetry. She's great at poetry, and it's called Malamente. Malante.
What kind of research do you do? And how long do you spend researching before you write a book?
I don't. As I said, I write from experience, so I don't really have to research a lot. There is one book that I may write, but I don't think I will, because I really, I don't know. There is one book that I want to write, and it's a mix of two of my favorites, and but of course, original work done by me that I would need to have significant amounts of research, because it would be basically focused on mental health, and I can only speak from the stuff that I have, I can't really, there's a lot more than that I would have to research, but I don't know if that's ever come to be. It's just like the sequel, everybody asks about the sequel to Heartbeat, and sometimes totally up for it, sometimes I'm like, no, it's never gonna happen, and I don't know, I really don't know how much longer I'm gonna keep on writing, so yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to leave Nico's links down below to his social media, so anyone who wants to link, and his Wattpad, Inkit, and Heartbeat. I have to think about it. Then I'm going to leave my links down below. So yeah, that's Nicholas for you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me.
It was all my pleasure.